What is the most condescending advice you received from someone who assumed you were poorer or less educated than them? 1. It was my first day at a new hospital. I pulled into the lot and parked in a spot reserved for physicians. I was a bit early, so I called my BFF, who is also an OB/GYN, and I was laughing and chatting with her when I hear an angry knock on my window. I turned to see a white male, in his late 50s to early 60s, with his face twisted in anger. I roll down my window and he begins shouting, "You can't park here. This is for physicians only." So I grab my badge, that's on a stretch string, and I place it about 1 centimeter from his face and say, "I think this gives me permission to park here, dude." No apologies. He just turns on his heels and walks away. Yes, black women can be physicians too. 2. I was walking my dog around the marina and I was going back to my dad's boat. I saw a couple standing next to it. I walked down to the end of the dock and the guy told me only boat owners are allowed on the docks, and I have to get out. Then he turned to the woman and was telling her about the places he's been on his boat, and how he has to find someone to clean it. All this time he was pointing at my dad's boat. I was just standing there wondering what's going on. Then he told me that if I'm lucky enough I'll find a rich guy like him, and told me to go away before he called security. The woman said I'll have to find some other guy because he's taken. She made a face at me and was hugging him. I tried going around them and he asked what I'm doing. I told him I was getting on my dad's boat, and they both laughed at me. Then Ed, one of the crew, came out from the back of the boat and told me dinner is ready. I told him I'll be right up as soon as these idiots got out of my way. I stuck my tongue out at the woman and said, "He's all yours." She got mad and walked away. The guy was following her and she kept yelling at him to stay away and how he's a fake. Tom, another crew, opened the side door and asked me what's going on. I said she didn't like him as much as she thought she did. 3. I was in my classroom after my class had left for the day. They had made a bit of a mess, so after I'd tidied the place, I got out the vacuum and began to run it around the room. I wanted it to look fresh for the new teacher's aide who I was going to interview that afternoon. A young man came in, looked at me, but didn't say a word, didn't introduce himself, just sat down at my desk. I asked him, "Can I help you?" He made an impatient gesture with his hand. "Just clean up and get out. I've got an interview with the head teacher at 4. I shrugged and got on with it. After about 5 minutes the room was clean and I put away the vacuum. As I was coming back to the room, the young man came out looking annoyed and said, "Look, pass on the message to the head teacher that he's late for our interview, so I'm leaving." I glanced at my watch, said, "I'm so sorry, but you did imply that you didn't mind waiting," as I was cleaning up. "It's now 4:05. He stared at me. "What's it got to do with you?" I held out my hand to shake his. "I'm the head teacher. Do you want to go back now for the interview?" He stared, then went several shades of red and left. Needless to say, if he'd stayed for the interview he would have had to be truly exceptional for me to overlook his silly gender bias that I was supposed to be a male, and his assumption that a head teacher can't clean up as well as a professional cleaner. And just for the record, our cleaner is male. 4. I was looking to buy an airplane hangar several years ago. Yes, there are airports where you can own them. It's a long story as to why I needed to buy one. A local real estate agent who owned a hangar at the airport at which I was interested in purchasing one met my real estate agent and me to show us several hangars that he had listed for sale, including his. This guy gets most of the hangar listings at the airport because he's already there, which makes good sense. A couple of them interested me, and I asked what the best price would be on the ones I liked. He asked me how much I wanted to pay. I'd done my research, and made what I thought was a fair verbal offer for each, which I was willing to put into writing for the first owner who might have had interest in my offer. Each offer was about 85% of the listing price. After a long verbal dissertation about how the airport worked and how pleasant hangar ownership was for those who could afford it, his advice to me was to come back when you get serious and can afford to buy. I did. I bought the hangar 2 doors down from his about a month later. It came up for sale and was listed with another agent, and the owner accepted my first offer. I ran into the guy while I was working at my new property a couple of weeks after closing. He remembered me and asked me if I was still thinking of buying a hangar. I told him no, I only needed one, and since I'd bought his neighbors, I was out of the market. The look on his face was priceless. 5. I once rolled up on a forklift next to a jackass in an off-the-rack suit and a 5-year-old Mercedes and asked him, nicely, to move his car because one of our incoming shipments was a mess and we needed some extra room to unload it. Guy took a look at my dirty hands and the Carhartts I was wearing and rolled his eyes. He moved, but growled that he was already late for an important meeting with my boss. He was there to sell us new enterprise software. The look on his face when I walked into our meeting 15 minutes late with the same dirty hands wearing the same Carhartts was precious, especially when my partners introduced me as the IT director. I wish I'd taken a picture. 6. I used to work in engineering, high-precision aerospace stuff. It just so happened that the majority of the people who worked there were men. In fact, I was one of only 3 women out of the 300 or so who worked there. We also all wore the same corporate clothing, which was nice because it made us feel like a team rather than managers versus shop floor. One incident stands out in my head. I was near the shop floor entrance chatting to one of the guys, when a couple from our new supplier walked in. One of them barked at me, "I've got an appointment to see the managing director," about some technical issues, whilst the other didn't even condescend to look at me. Despite his rudeness, I said, "Certainly sir, I'll take you up there." I settled them into the office, big office, very plush, and asked them if they'd like coffee. They nodded. Speaking was too much effort, and I served them freshly brewed coffee and expensive biscuits. "No, thank you, of course." Then I proceeded to introduce myself and shook their hands. "Hello, I'm Drive Dickens, Managing Director. Now let's get started on those technical issues, shall we? I have never seen two people pale so quickly. Because I could have canceled their supply contract in a second. Because I have a PhD in aerospace engineering, my title is Drive. And almost without fail, everyone thinks I am a male. So this scenario happened time and time again. The guys who worked for me thought it was brilliant. They thought you were the secretary again. Exclamation mark. But it can wear a bit thin sometimes. 7. I'm 78 and long ago gave away my suits and attorney attire, let my hair grow out. I dress in t-shirts and jeans, and because I'm single now and still hate shopping at the mall, I hit Goodwill and get what I need. Anyway, I was at Burger King and couldn't make out the menus because my glasses were in my car. How much is this and that? I asked this precious little girl behind the counter while I started to count the bills in my wallet, so I ordered, and because I don't drink sodas or eat oily food, I neglected to include them in my order. She automatically gave me a senior discount of 70 cents. She asked me if she could bring my Whopper because it's individually cooked, and I said bring it outside because I'll wait. I saw her and waved her over to my new Bentley Flying Spur. She said, without noticing the car, that they added fries and a large Coke. Just to be nice, sir, and she went back inside. I was stunned. What a heart. I went to the ATM and took $500 out and wrote a note, and took a bag from the trash can and wrote a love note about not judging and sharing. And I took her hand and made her take it. And then I demanded she ring me up for the Coke and fries. She broke down like teenage girls do. I explained to her manager that she thought I was a hungry old bum, and she wanted to feed me. And I left.